Hi. Well, at Kit Plugins, they seem to be on a roll, since it was only about a month ago that they released their Core Compressor plugin, which I made a video about and I will link to at the end of this one. And now they have released their Core EQ plugin, an equalizer. And in this video, I'm going to have a look at what that brings to the table. So let's go. Yeah, so Kit Plugins is a relatively new plugin company, and I think they've released about 4 plugins at this moment. And the most notable one being the emulation of the Neve console of the Blackbird Studios in Nashville, the BBN105 plugin, which was their most prominent release to date, I think. At the end of last year, they released their Core Compressor, and this is the equalizer of the same series, the Core series. I've made videos on the BBN105 plugin as well as their Core Compressor, and I'll leave some links in the description if you want to have a look at those. Now, full disclaimer, Kit Plugins did provide me with a license for this plugin prior to the release, so I could already have a look, but they have in no way influenced the contents of this video, nor have I even promised them a video on this plugin, and they have not seen this video before I released it. So with that out of the way, let's have a look at this plugin. Starting with the manual, what they're saying is that the Core EQ gives you the total power and transparency of a modern equalizer, packed into an instinctive design reminiscent of some of the most legendary analog EQs on the planet. With Core EQ you can mix and produce with absolute ease. And to get ahead in today's high-speed production world, you want to make fast-paced decisions, and Core EQ is the ultimate tool in your sonic arsenal to take your tonal shaping to the finish line faster than ever. Set it, forget it, and deliver pro mixes at pro pace with Core EQ. Yeah, so the vision of this plugin seems to be the same as for the Core Compressor, which has very little bells and whistles. This one doesn't even have any bells and whistles, and it's just meant to perform its function in a very quick and intuitive way. Now, if you open the plugin in Cubase, you can see that it's really very basic. It has 5 filters, starting with a high-pass filter from 16 Hz to 380 Hz, a low frequency section going from 30 to 450, and you can use it in shelf or in peak mode, and a low mid-frequency section going from 200 to 2.5K, and this one is parametric. High mids, same, but going from 600 to 7K, high frequencies going from 1.5 to 16K, peak or shelf, and a low pass filter going from 7K to 20K. And I also checked it out in Plugin Doctor. There's also no notable saturation or analog emulation that it adds in that way. So let's quickly have a test run on the mix here. And by the way, I noticed you can't control click or double click to reset the gain buttons, but you can type in a value. So if I want to reset it to 0, I need to do it like this. And the full mix track that I'm now using as an example is called What If, and it's from Streambeats, and they provide copyright-free music for content creators, so check them out if you don't know them. So let's have a quick listen to this plugin.
Have I become a little too shy for love? I've been hurt before. All's fair in love and war. So I snuggle up close to the shell I'm living in. And if I let you in, another round begins. No, I'm spinning in a vicious cycle. I'm scared of doing something I'll regret. Maybe this is right, but I'm still staring at your silhouette. What if you're everything I need? A fire in my heart, the air I breathe. What if I'm incomplete without you by my side? What if I go against my heart instead of confessing from the start? What if I miss out on the life meant for us? I need you by my side.
Yeah, so it's a basic EQ. Sounds pretty good on first listen. But the question is, of course, do you need this? Because you also have a basic EQ in your digital audio workstation. Maybe you already have some additional paid equalizers. So how does this equalizer compare, for example, to the standard one you have in your DAW, and to a more higher priced plugin with a similar setup in equalizer brands? Let's have a look at that. So you can see that I have 4 copies of the same bass track here. The first one does not have any EQ at all. The second one has an SSL 9000J plugin of Plugin Alliance on there. And I chose this particular plugin because it's quite highly regarded. It's basically the latest and most accurate SSL emulation. And it also has a similar setup in bands. So it has the low and high pass filters over here. And then it has a high frequency and low frequency. section which are not parametric, and then it has a low mid and a high mid frequency selection which are parametric as well. So very comparable to the core EQ as far as equalizer section is concerned. Obviously this plugin has more functionality. It also has a dynamic section. And it does cost a lot more, especially if you're paying full price, although I would advise to wait for special deals that Plugin Alliance offers every once in a while. And especially if you're a preferred customer, they also give you extra discounts, and then you can probably pick it up for a much lower price. So let's first have a listen at what I did with this EQ to make the bass sound more in the direction of what I wanted to. First bass without EQ, and then I'll switch to the bass with the SSL EQ. So what I basically did, I cut some of the very lows, which I usually do on bass to make room for the kick. And I limited the high end to about 6K because there's not really very much on top there anyway. Apart from that, I boosted a couple of dB around 120 Hz, which is the most active frequency in this bass guitar. And I also boosted a bit around 1K, which gives the bass some extra punch. Now what I then did is I put two different EQs on copies of this track. One is the studio EQ from Cubase, which has 4 bands, which is just about enough. So this is basically the standard EQ that you get with your DAW. And I tried to match the sound by ear as well as by using Cubase EQ matching. And if you want to know how I do that, I have a separate video on that, which I'll link in the description. But in the end, it ended up on these frequencies with these amounts of cut and boost. And then I did exactly the same thing with the core EQ. I also tried to match the sounds of the SSL EQ, and then I checked it with EQ matching and compensated some more. And these are the settings that I ended up with on the core EQ. So let's have a listen to how close I was able to get to the SSL EQ by means of the standard Cubase EQ, as well as the core EQ, which is the subject of this video, of course. So what do you think? Do you hear any obvious difference? Let me know in the comments if you do. Oh, and by the way, you can also download these comparison tracks with the link in the description below. So you can have a much more detailed listen without any of the YouTube compression in your own DAW. Now let's have a listen to this plugin on a drum mix. Again, I have the drum mix without EQ. I have the drum mix with the SSL EQ on there. So let's first have a quick listen to what I did to the drum with the SSL EQ. Yeah, to me the track with the SSL EQ sounds a bit tighter, and that's mostly caused by the fact that I got rid of some very low end, low cut below 50 Hz. I boosted the fundamental kick frequency, which is 60 Hz. Got rid of a bit around the area of 430, which is never a good frequency range for drums. And I boosted a bit around 5K, which gives some extra snap to the snare and to the kick. Now again, I then try to match this sound with the studio EQ of Cubase. And same thing with the core EQ. These are the settings I got to after listening and doing the EQ match. So let's have a listen to the differences of these 3 EQs. And again, can you hear any difference in the YouTube audio? Or maybe when you download the exports and listen in your own DAW? I'm curious, tell me about it in the description. And now on to the same comparison on a vocal track. I figured it might be nice to use a female vocal recording, so this is not a recording that I did myself. It's actually a recording of Mary Spender that Warren Ewart from Produce Like a Pro did. And in the description I will put a link to the video of Produce Like a Pro that provides these tracks for download. And I will also provide a link to the YouTube channel of Mary Spender, who's an excellent musician and YouTuber. So let's have a look and listen. Again, I have a track without EQ and one with the SSL. And in this case, I'm cutting the lows below 77 Hz. I'm again cutting some more lows around 99 Hz. I'm cutting some boxiness around 600 Hz. And I'm adding some high end with a shelf at 6K. So let's have a listen to the vocal without EQ and with the SSL EQ.
Someone better come along. I'll be waiting. Someone better, worthy of a song.
So those are the differences. Let's now have a listen to the differences between the SSL EQ, the Cubase Studio EQ, and the core EQ by Kit plugins on this vocal, after I tried to match them as well as I could.
Someone better come along. I'll be waiting. Someone better, worthy of a song. Ooh, someone better come along. I'll be waiting. Someone better, worthy of a song. It must have driven her insane.
So again, what do you think after carefully listening to this in your DAW with the downloaded tracks? Or maybe you can even hear a clear difference on YouTube. Now I also had a look at the performance of this plugin, so let's have a look. This is a plugin with a number of copies of that full mix track that I used in the beginning. And it's actually 64 copies, and all of the tracks have a core EQ on them, with all bands doing something basically. And if you look at the performance, you can see that, well, it's not even 10%. It's probably 8% of my CPU that these plugins are using now. So that's pretty efficient, not a CPU hog at all. Now, as for my conclusion, I think it's a very nice equalizer. Obviously quite standard functionality. The big knobs on this plugin actually handle a bit better than the studio equalizers, and I like the sound a bit better. And in some examples, I could even get quite close to the SSL sound. For example, on the vocal, I think I had it matched quite closely. And the sound was very similar for a much lower price. Now obviously, before you buy, always try the plugin yourself. I'm recording this when they have not yet released the plugin, so I can't really see whether they have a demo or trial, but they usually do, so test it out for yourself. Now if you like this video or find it useful, please give it a thumbs up, subscribe to the channel and ring the little bell icon so you know when I post another video. You can also support the channel by buying anything via the affiliate links that are down in the description. And if you want to have a look at a video of me on what I consider the best plugin of Kit plugins so far, then have a look at this video on the BB N105, my version 2 video. Enjoy that and see you soon.